Uh, Hello, everyone. If you can hear me, I hope everyone can hear. Hi. Thanks for joining. This panel is focused on race in competitive Smash. My name is Kabs. I'm based in the UK, and I'm joined by three other panelists. If you could all introduce yourself, I guess we'll start with Amsah.
Sure.
Go into-
Sure. Well, most of you know, but for those of you who don't, I'm Amsah. I'm a melee player. And as you can see, I'm black, so I'm kind of an expert on this.
Fantastic. Boobi, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hello, so I'm Boobi. I'm a French melee player. Recently, I've been a TO for Ultimate in Lille, on the north, in France.
Fantastic. And Zhulong.
Yeah, hi. My tag's Zhulong. I'm from the UK, near London, and I've been playing for a few years. Organised some tournaments, and yeah.
Fantastic.
Sorry about my video, by the way. My video is kind of out of sync, so apologies for
that. No worries at all. So far the talks have been fantastic in this conference. We've covered a lot of marginalized groups. I don't know how often race is talked about when it comes to marginalized groups. So I think it's nice that we're having this conversation. So to start off, just a very broad question about how race has impacted your experience in the Smash Bros scene, especially compared to the rest of society, if you will, and if there's any differences you've noticed, especially in your respective countries, because all three panelists here are based in different areas, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
I'll direct to Amsah first. You said you're the expert, so
I knew that was trying to bite me immediately, apparently. How has it impacted me? I would say in the actual community itself, when I'm at tournaments, it doesn't impact me nearly as much as it does outside of it. And I think that probably has to do with the fact that you interact with people face to face. But where I do know that it does impact me is when I first joined. And it wasn't even because of the group, it's because of what I was used to. So I felt a little bit like an outsider because just me and my friends, right? Against the whole community of just non-minority people. So that was, for me personally, it was a little awkward to basically find some kind of connection to worm my way in, basically. But once I was at a tournament and once I felt like I was accepted, I didn't really run into that many issues. Where I've run into issues is traveling towards tournaments. So at the TSA, at the border, I had to get my back checked everywhere and get stopped everywhere. It's really annoying. But at tournaments themselves, I haven't had interactions interpersonally that were really bad. So it's hard for me to pinpoint like one specific thing. I don't know about you guys. At least in Holland.
Don't mind me asking, when did you actually start? You said your first tournament. When was that?
Yeah, I started in 2005, so it's a very long time ago. But we were all teams back then, right? So it was different. It's entirely different. Actually, no. Now that I think of it, I have had. It's not like it hasn't impacted me at all, but not personally, like I said. But what I have experienced, some of you probably know, I joined a team a few years back, and they were looking for sponsors, obviously for the team. And they're like, yeah, we have this player. He's Amsah. He's best in Netherlands. He has a history and everything. And they were excited until they saw me, apparently. That's what I heard from my manager. And they were like, oh, he's a black guy. We didn't know. Are you guys okay with that? And that's what he told me. And that's how the deal fell through. So it's not like it doesn't impact me at all. But personally, I haven't had any bad experience, but stuff like that happens all the time, apparently. So it does impact me. Just hear about it afterwards. So it's kind
That's a real shame to hear.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Wow. That's almost painful to hear, to be honest.
Yeah, that wasn't fun.
A question I had, if you don't mind asking, was how do you think things have changed in general, like socially between players since you started in maybe 2020?
Yeah. I think people are more aware of different experiences between races than people were when I started. People would say really insensitive things, and I don't even think they said it to be spiteful or hateful or anything like that. It just didn't know. People would just scream out the N-word and use it a lot, and because it's funny and it's cool and we're singing songs and we're friends, I can say it, you're my friend, it's fine, and stuff like that. But I feel like now people are more aware of what is and is not even appropriate, but what is and isn't painful. Like what's funny and when you accidentally cross the line into territory where you can actually hurt people. I feel like people are way more aware of what those boundaries are, and they're better able to navigate them compared to when I started.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think gamer culture as a whole in the 2000s was a lot more slur heavy.
Yeah,
across the board. A lot more acceptability for all kinds of things, especially racial slurs. So I'm not surprised to hear that, and I'm glad to hear that too.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad we grew up in that aspect. It was, really bad. I'm not even going to pretend like I wasn't part of it, but we were younger and less mature as a society, I feel like. So I'm glad we're going in the right direction at the very least.
I'm just going to throw in another topic since I think we're leading to it. So this is about the intersection of typically marginalized groups. So yes, we're here to discuss race, but we can't deny that there are other groups. So women, LGBT, etc. There are many groups that are marginalized in many different ways. And when you compound all those different groups, you get unique situations, problems, I'm sure. Boobi, I'm going to, don't mind, ask what sort of experiences have you had in the Smash community, and how different is it to outside the Smash community, and your thoughts?
As a woman, as a woman and an Asian woman, it was Asian people in general. We have a good reputation, and especially when you are a woman, because they see a sort of cliche of Asian women, and whether in Smash or outside, it's the same thing. They see me as a good Asian woman, and in fact, I I didn't like Amsah feel something especially about my origin, but in fact, I already heard things like, "Oh, if you were single, I would flirt with you," or "I love Asian women." So it's sometimes it was difficult for me to be an Asian woman in Smash community. Yes, I don't know if it's the same thing for the others people.
I mean, I personally never had to think too much about race in my own experiences. But I also joined much later, so I think things have matured quite a lot. I certainly haven't had to think about someone trying to flirt with me. I must admit. That hasn't been.
Maybe it was all the more difficult because when I started, I play melee since 10 years right now, since 2010. So I was alone I was the only Asian woman in France. So whenever I go in tournaments, either in France or in Europe, I was the only Asian woman. So so in the end, I said, okay, let's go. And in fact, I have a fierce personality. So whenever I heard something that could hurt me, I just say, oh, okay, just laugh. It's not important. And in fact, just you also I have a nickname, a pretty funny nickname, Boobs. It's not something that you can. In fact, I'm Boobs. So whenever men who talk to me, they say, "Oh, what's your nickname?" I say, "Boobs, Boobs," and it refers to my condition, an Asian woman, and it refers to the Asian woman cliché in video games, women with big breasts, and so always men stop their bad behavior when they talk to me because I'm boobs. And I can't explain it better.
That's really powerful, actually. That's I definitely when I was sharing this conference with other people, some people made some remarks about, oh, that's an interesting name, but then I described uh, the situation where it came from, and it was taken as like kind of a positive thing. So I think that's really cool, actually. It's a really good spin. I think.
Yeah, it was the same reaction for me when I heard it. When I saw it the first time, I was like, okay, that's a bit confusing. But when you hear the story, I figured, well, more power to you. Just turn the whole thing around. So it's all
That's
good.
a reaction that many people have.
Yeah.
I remember when I went to to the first DreamHack Winter it was en Suède. Well, the first DreamHack Winter, I went there, and it was funny because everyone thought that I was a man with a funny nickname, and
Yeah.
when they discovered that I was a girl, they I remembered some Americans say, "Oh my God, they're boobs," and they took me my hand. They took my hand and they and joked with their friends and say, "Oh, this is boobs. You see, this is boobs, boobs." I say, oh my God,
Yeah.
my boyfriend was so hungry that this day.
Wow. If you don't mind me asking, what what's your thought, or what the reactions that you get, like even the same reactions that I got, and do you hope for a different reaction, or is this what you're hoping for so that people do immediately behave, or are you hoping for people to just go, oh yeah, that's a name, or is there is there a goal you want to see something change?
Um, well, now I had to change the last letter, so now I'm going with this Boobi because because now people are shocked when I say hello, I'm boobs. They say what? And it thinks it's disgraceful, and they don't understand my nickname. So I prefer to change the last letter of it
Mm.
and go by Boobi. So now, and in Ultimate you can't write boobs. So I
Yeah.
had to change it.
That makes
But
sense.
in general, I don't expect that uh, something else because, like you said, if people are more aware about it. Um, I just hope that for other Asian women, I could open some ways for her to be at ease on the community.
No, that's fantastic. But actually, I guess that's what we're all trying to do here as well. So, yeah, I hope that continues. Let's see. Just so just to jump ship to different topics, because there's actually a lot that I know we want to talk about. We as I mean you well, but both Amsah and Boobi, as you've said, you've been in the community for a fairly long time, at least a decade, by the sounds of it. For Zhulong, you've been in the community for 3 years. Is that right?
Yeah, just
Yes.
over 3. Yeah.
Just wondering if you, and for myself as well, like I've only been here for only been here for 6 years. What have you? Do you feel like when you joined, there was any specific things that you maybe, how do I say this, that surprised you in regards to demographics, or you were if there were things that you thought were uncomfortable or weird, or yeah, talk me through what your thoughts when you started and how that's changed.
Yeah, sure. I think when I started, I think, as you know, coming from a similar, well, from London as well. I'm from near London, a very naturally diverse place, and so I was quite pleasantly surprised at how, how many different kinds of people there were. Whether it be sort of just backgrounds or ethnicities or anything like that, at the tournaments. And I don't know what your thoughts are on that, whether you agree with me on that one or not. But I think London as a whole, the scene is very diverse, and it's a great thing. I spoke to a few people before this to see what other people's experiences were with racism in Smash, mostly from London, and nobody had said anything. No one had experienced anything personally, which I thought was really great to hear. The one thing that keeps recurring is, and it's something that I was pretty kind of stunned by when I first heard, is a certain top player chant, which I'm sure you
I know
know what I'm referring to. And I don't know if we're referring to things case by case or not, but I think the use of chants is, I don't know whether it's because people feel comfortable because there's so many people saying it at once that you kind of, each individual blends in and doesn't really take the responsibility for the words used. Maybe they wouldn't say maybe one by themselves, but when it's a crowd of people saying it, it's become slightly more, I'm not sure how to word it really, but that was the one thing that was surprising for me, was that chant. But other than that, I think myself, being mixed race and being quite light skinned anyway, I don't really experience much racism. When I was younger, I did more so in primary school, especially. But growing up, most people just assume that I'm either white or maybe Hispanic or something. So for me personally, it's not really much of a big issue in my day-to-day life. And yeah, in Smash, I've very fortunately never witnessed anything firsthand or heard of anything offhand. So I think, as Amsa said, the awareness of the impact that words have is greater today than it was, 10 years ago. So that's a great thing. But yeah, I think collective kind of awareness of certain words or phrases or still needs some work. But I think as a whole, the UK does a quite good job of being very accepting of different people, in my experience.
Yeah.
It sounded like you wanted to add. Did you have something you wanted to say in your gut? Well, it sounded like there was a reaction to the chant.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I remember hearing the chant for the first time, and for the longest time, I had no idea what they were saying at the end. And when I found out, it's like, who made that up? Like, who was the first person to come up with that? And everybody just signed on as if it was a normal thing. Like, I'm not personally offended by it, but it shouldn't be that hard to see why it could be offensive to other people.
Yeah,
that just blew my mind. But that's groupthink for you, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's what makes it worse is it's sexist and kind of racist at the same time. So it's a double whammy in 10 seconds. So
yeah. Yeah. It's just weird.
Yeah, it's
I feel like it's a relic from the time I was talking about. I'm not sure how new it is, to be quite honest, but that's the kind of stuff I would expect when I first started. And
that was my thought when I heard it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, that was my thought when I first heard it. It sounded like something that was maybe late 2000s and for some reason had not been retired, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, say, I mean, I thought it's to all three of you. Say there is you hear this chant again. Something happens that involves a group of people doing the same action together. So, I mean, Zhulong hit on that idea of how, because it's a group, it's like, who do you blame, really? Like, everyone is kind of involved in the same thing. What are you hoping, what would you hope for, say, a TO, or, what would you hope other people would do in those scenarios? Is that something that's ever crossed your mind? I only just thought of it now. I've never really thought about this before.
Yeah, that's a tough one. It's when you're dealing with, the song isn't even that old, but it's somewhat of a tradition, you could say. And when you're dealing with tradition and groupthink, I'm not entirely sure how you solve it. I think the only way you can get rid of it is if you educate people on why it's offensive and why it's probably a good idea not to do it. Maybe to even change the lyrics and change it into something that's more acceptable, to give people like something to chant. Because telling them to shut up, yeah, well, that's not going to work. But you might give them like something else, and that might work. But if a group of people do slip up or they decide to just chant it anyway, I'm not sure what you do about it. Because for me, it feels like this is like a micro version of what I'm dealing with in the Netherlands. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with a tradition that Dutch people have called Black Peas.
Please explain.
Just Google it. Just Google it.
I'm
like it's basically it's a tradition. There's a what's it called? There's a holiday called Sinterklaas. It's basically Santa Claus, only the Dutch version, and he doesn't have elves, but he has people in blackface, basically. And it's a tradition, and you can't get them to realize that it's really, 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 really offensive, right? And that's something that we're struggling with, and I'm not sure how to solve that either. I think the only way you solve it is by talking to people and explaining to them, like, hey, look, I know this is tradition to you. I know you think it's funny. I know you think this is not a big deal, but there are people that have a different experience from you, that have a different history, that have different sensitivities and a different background in general. And once you can educate people on your perspective and get them to use a little bit of empathy, which won't work with everyone, but there are plenty of people that simply don't know. And if you can explain to them what it does to you and why, and they might refrain from it and maybe teach their friends as well. I think that's the only way you do it. So I don't know if a TO can do it on its own. I'm not sure.
That's a really good response to me basically asking, how do you solve racism? I think that's that's actually really, well done. I just to get a last voice in, Boobi, I do. You're based in France, aren't you? Are there specific things in France as well that happen that might bleed into the Smash community sometimes, or like behaviors that you think, like, if people just talked about it more, it would happen less in regards to race and just generally?
Can you repeat? I didn't understand well your question.
Sorry. I was just saying how are there, say, behaviors in France in general, or traditions or anything like that, that you see also in the Smash community, or you just see behaviors around race, or anything else in general that you just, yeah.
Thanks. Okay. In France, well, we we can't talk in France. You see because of the news that people are more. I think in France, when you're people of color um, or smashers, especially when you're Muslim, it's been worse for them in the Smash community, but in France in general, because of our actuality, Charlie Hebdo, and the French people are more about them. So, so I saw much more attack on these people, and on the contrary, I see Muslim smashers be more aggressive when you attack them. It's like when you attack one Muslim smashers, it's like you attack everyone. So I refer to a recent case of a woman who talk about the LGBT community in Smash and said, "Oh, we have to accept every LGBT people on Smash, and whether if you're..." And she said something a little problematic. She said, "We have to accept it when whether if your religions told you to not accept them." Well, it was directed uh, um, directed to Muslim people. Unfortunately, I don't think that. But they attack her aggressively, and it's more like that in France. That's there is group of people who attack each other um, whenever you talk about them or about race in France, especially when you attack Muslim people because they are tired. To everyone talk about them, they are just tired, and it's the same thing in Smash. They are just tired. They just come to play. They don't want to be assimilated. They don't want to see Islamophobic jokes, and unfortunately we can see that sometimes. And racist cliche about them, unfortunately.
It's really that it's also unfortunate that like in the last talk there was a mention of escapism for everyone who plays, but that's clearly not the case for everyone. By the sounds of it, as you say, like in France, it sounds like Muslims just can't get away from the troubles that they have to deal with.
Yeah, I know some Muslim women can't who are afraid to come to events, Smash events, because they have the veil. They say, but well, it's. Have you ever seen a woman a Muslim Smash woman
Yes.
and with a veil? Ah, it's
Yeah.
great because in
Yeah.
France, I am waiting for it.
See, the town I'm from in particular, a town called Luton, is very has a very big Muslim population. So yeah, very commonly see people around in that kind of dress.
You know, there's actually a mosque. I can see you outside my window there, so I see them often too. But it sounds like France is a little different, especially in the Smash community. That's really unfortunate. So in would you say that in the last talks the talks about like the Smash sisters, like how much they have a positive impact in encouraging women to get involved in Smash and give them a safe space. I'm not suggesting exactly the same thing for race groups, but do you think there's potential for some sort of organized encouragement for specific groups that are struggling in your area? I thought it's to everyone, not just to one person here, but I'm just wondering if anyone's ever thought of that. I personally haven't, actually, to be honest.
No.
Yeah, beyond Smash Sisters, I've never thought about anything like that. It could be useful, but I'm not sure.
I think it sounds like we're starting something.
Sorry. I think it's the opposite. If you organize something, an event based on race, because I think in Smash, everyone is welcome. There is no distinction based on our origin. It's I never see someone being banned or being refused from an event because he's black, Asian, or whatever. So if you do that, I think it would do the opposite, because you would highlight something
Yeah.
that's normal in Smash. We
Mhm.
have this chance in Smash that the question of race is not something that people who won't go to events, it's not a problem like that. It's a problem when you're part of a local community and when others think that you as a friends and begin to make racist jokes toward you, like Amsah they said before, who said, since in 2010 we heard the N word a lot of not now, but before what it was not like was like that. And when I was still to local events, whenever everyone know each other, it was where it was the most problematic. Some people said, hey, because they think racist jokes as jokes.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think when it came to Smash Sisters and stuff like that, it was generally a problem and really difficult for women to enter the community. But with the other differences we have, it's more localized. Like you said, it's more once you've entered and you're part of the community that people feel too comfortable to make certain types of jokes or to isolate you or to target you in a way that maybe they're not, maybe it's not even malicious, but it's happening anyway. So I'm not sure if purposely segregating that group would actually have the effect that you want.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
I agree.
But it does sound like that, well, as faced with the previous talks that we had, that it still might be helpful to have some sort of, I guess, avenue to bring these issues up.
Yeah.
That I agree.
Yeah, it sounds like it could be useful if there are groups of people who feel uncomfortable currently coming to events, maybe, and they would like some kind of something like that, maybe. But maybe it's worth trying to find out. But I'm not exactly sure how you would find out. But it could be something to be looked into, I suppose. If the demand's there.
But I do agree with what you said, though, about bringing a light to it and having like a platform to actually raise these issues. But I think that's kind of what we're doing here, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of people also try to do it on Twitter, which is definitely not the best platform, but it does raise people's. At least it makes people aware that it could be an issue, and I think doing stuff like that and addressing it when you see it is probably the best way to deal with these things. I think.
Yeah, like so as I mentioned, like I don't deal with racism that often where I live, at least not directly, and certainly not in the Smash Bros community at all, in my experience, but I don't want to then assume it's okay for everyone everywhere and then just ignore it. Like, you know. So I think it's good that we're talking about this. So I wanted to bring up something else. So Amsah, and I'm not sure about you as well, Boobi, but do you both? I mean, Amsah, I know you travel to other countries fairly frequently. I mean, not this year, presumably, but I wonder if actually you touched on it in the beginning, that actually the traveling to other places does come with its own problems. But what is the Smash Bros community like when you go to other countries? What do you feel? Do you feel that there's a difference? Does race play a part? You notice stuff? I'm curious.
Yeah, like I think at tournaments themselves, I've never really noticed like people treating me differently just because I'm a Black person. Not really. The only time, well, there's one time where I felt like who I was might have played a reason in why I was being treated the way I was, or because of what happened. Let me just tell the story. There was one time, I don't remember when it was, but maybe 2006-ish, 5, 6, 7, somewhere along those lines. And I remember being at a tournament and I won, and we all got prize money in envelopes. And I put mine on the table and went to play a few friendlies. And then when I came back, my envelope was gone. Somebody took it, all my prize money. And I don't know who took it, and I don't know why they took it, but I do know that that was the first time it ever happened, and it never happened again. And it happened to be the only Black person that ever won a tournament there. So that was kind of weird. So I don't know if that was if they did it because I was the outsider back then in a way, but I definitely felt like one when that happened. I felt like if any of the other guys won that tournament, I don't think that would have happened, but it could have also been my negligence. So that's the closest I've come to actually feeling like I got, like something happened to me because of the way I look, but I don't know, of course. And other than that, I don't think I've ever had any interaction where I went like, ooh, that didn't go properly. I've had those outside of Smash, but never at tournaments. And that's probably a good thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
The reason I asked and is I brought this up when we were discussing a bit earlier because it crossed my mind, was how actually, so well, I just need to articulate myself well. I'll probably directing this towards you, Zhulong, because I know you've been kind of up to date with the news as well quite a lot. I know you do follow that. The whole world at the moment has their eyes on America when it comes to, in regards to racism especially. And one of the things that crossed my mind that I was kind of worried about was how we can very easily, like in the UK, I know we do this a lot where we go, oh wow, America, it's terrible over there. And then it takes one person to say, it's kind of bad over here too. And everyone goes, what? So I do wonder if well actually even with Smash Bros in particular, if you get say a news article from Kotaku and they're talking about Smash Bros, firstly, you know it's probably a bad thing. But on top of that, it seems that the focus is always on the American community, American Smash community. Now, admittedly, with Kotaku, a lot of the reporters are in America, so that makes sense. But I do wonder if that gives Europe and the rest of the world a free pass when it comes to racism or things like that, especially when people are saying, you know, like, oh, it's not so bad over here, right? I don't know. I do wonder, Zhulong, I don't know. You also work as a teacher, right? Is that correct?
Sorry, say that again.
You work as a teacher, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's right.
Is
Yeah,
that
I'm a
right?
student. I'm a student teacher at the moment, and I'll be teaching from January onwards. But yeah, that is definitely true. I think racism is still institutionalized here. You know, it's part of the makeup of the country and the background of it. But it's I think less overt than it is in the US. I think, and so I think a lot of people if they don't experience it, they don't see it, and it's very easy to people to write it off. Or pretend like it doesn't happen because it's not on the same scale or it's not as in your face. I can't speak on European countries, mainland countries, of course, but I think something. I'm trying to think of how to best answer the question. Something I was speaking to recently was a friend of mine, and how do we go about making sure that education on issues is adequate enough to kind of help prevent mistakes being made. And one thing that they brought up that I never really thought about was how a lot of, for example, Black history is very much taught from the view of pure oppression. It's very much people talk about, okay, yeah, we need to teach about slavery, we need to teach about segregation, but there's far more to the teaching about other people's backgrounds, just other than European backgrounds, than just it's taught from a very Eurocentric way. So it's very much what people did in Europe and what Europeans did everywhere else, rather than what other people did for themselves a lot of the time. So, things like the Benin Empire or the Mali Empire, and he was one of the ruler of that was one of the richest people in the medieval times, the Middle Ages. But we're never taught about these successes or these people who had power for themselves. We're kind of very much taught from a point of view of just the negative side of history of Black people a lot of the time, for example. So this is something I'm very conscious of, and going forward in teaching is something that I want to make sure that is shared as much as I possibly can. I'm not sure how that ties into Smash, but I think it's a broader issue, and obviously, it's been touched on here about educating people, telling people why certain things aren't right or are offensive. But yeah, I think education is just key. Exposure to these different ideas and things that people would never even conceive of before. I think a lot of children, for example, in the UK will grow up thinking like Africa is just mud huts and animals.
Yeah.
And they have no idea of the great history of the countries there. And I'm sorry if I've gone off on a tangent to what your original question was, but yeah.
Yeah. Can I add to that real quick?
Of course.
Because not specifically to what you said, but because of something you said, I just want to bring up a point.
Sure.
You were talking about educating people on on history and stuff like that. I keep saying that I haven't experienced anything in the Melee community. That's true, but that doesn't mean there's nothing there. There's a reason why I haven't experienced anything. It's because I'm modifying my behavior in such a way that I don't run into any trouble anywhere ever. And that's because of my experience everywhere else. I smile a lot. I'm known as a happy person by design. That's not an accident. I don't just go around running around with a smile. It's because I'm less threatening that way. And it's something that I've learned. It's a skill that I've learned to use, because if I don't, then things go bad when I'm not in the Smash community. Because racism it's not, a lot of people have like this caricature in their head of racism. It's like, oh, this person that calls me like, you're a Black person, you're less than me, and it's in my face. It's not like that. It's not like that at all. And that's why you don't experience it in Melee, because one, I smile a lot, and two, you're face to face. It's really hard to scream at someone and to say really racist things when I'm right next to you, right? So that doesn't happen. But the way it does happen is because of stereotyping and because of not understanding why people do certain things and assuming the worst when you don't know anything about them. So I just wanted to really explain what I mean when I say I haven't experienced anything. It's because I smile and I avoid conflict. It's the one thing I have to make sure that I don't experience these things. Like when I get angry, I can be really angry at someone and want to explode on them, and I won't do it. And that's not because I'm not angry or because I have perfect self-control. It's because I've done that in the past, and it never turns out right for me, even if I'm absolutely in the right? I've had that. And yeah, so I just wanted to clarify that little point. I haven't experienced anything, but it wasn't by accident because I go out of my way to not stir up any trouble anywhere.
Yeah.
So just wanted to say that.
Yeah, and it 100% should not have to be that way. People should not have to modify their behavior to avoid discrimination or.
Yeah, I agree. So as an example, I was talking to a friend of mine, really good. It's a friend of mine. He's a white guy. I'm a black guy, obviously. And he was telling me yesterday by total accident about his experience with getting pulled over by cops, for example. It's night and day. It's not the same thing. He would do something that is blatantly illegal, like park somewhere he's not supposed to park. Cop walks up and tells him like, "Hey, you're not supposed to park." He just goes into an argument and discusses it with him and goes like, "Nah, maybe, well, then write me a ticket." And he just plays with it, right? And it doesn't matter. And then he goes about his way. Sometimes he gets a ticket, sometimes he doesn't. And then here I am. My experience with a cop is I park my car somewhere with a friend, and then a cop pulls up and asks me for my license when I'm standing there for no reason. And when I ask him why he's asking for my license when I'm standing there not breaking any laws, he's like, "Well, because you're on the road," which is illegal. And when I point that out, he's like, "Either you give me your license or I arrest you." That's my experience. That's the difference, right? So what do I do then? I smile and give him my license, because if I don't, things go wrong. And I take that mentality with me into tournaments and pretty much every interaction I ever have with anyone I don't know. So yeah, I went off on a tangent. I'm sorry, but I wanted to clarify that. What you said.
No.
This is
Very
absolutely
valid
fine.
tangent.
I think tangents are going to be inevitable. It's impossible to separate Smash Bros from the outside world. Like escapism is a thing, but it's just not. It's not feasible. I mean that's quite fascinating actually. Amsah. I do. If you don't mind me asking, do you feel like so you carry yourself in a very specific way?
Yeah.
In many scenarios, I'm assuming. Do you feel like the Smash Bros communities that you, or the Smash scene tournaments that you go to, do you feel like you actually can't specifically in the Smash? Like, do you feel like you could be yourself in Smash Bros and it would be all okay, or do you think we're still not there yet? Or...
I think I would. I try to be myself as much as I can with people I know. So in the Dutch community, I'm not unfiltered. I'm never really unfiltered, but I'm way more myself than I would be if I go to the US. In the US, it's just mask all the way. I can't be myself. I don't know these people. I don't know what they're thinking. What if I make a joke and then I don't know. I don't know. That's the thing. I don't know how they'll react. And I didn't even realize I was doing this until a friend of mine actually pointed it out. We were in Sweden, the two of us, and we were getting picked up by some guy and his girlfriend, and he was trying to find us in the station, and we passed each other, and then his girlfriend was sitting in the car, but I didn't know her. Yeah, to paint the picture, it was dark, it was evening, somewhere around 10 p.m., whatever, in a different country, and she was sitting in the car by herself, and my friend, being the normal Dutch person, just walks up to her, like he's just walking to the car, and he's like, "Let's go say hi," and I'm like, "No," because I'm aware that if I'm a black guy at 10 p.m. walking up to a car with a woman who doesn't know me, no, that's not going to turn out right. I know what that seems like. I know that I can get a reaction that he's never even thought of. And he told me that, like, "Oh, I didn't even think of that ever." Like, yeah, I startle people. I just do, just by the way I look. There was one woman that almost fell off an escalator, and I caught her, basically saved her life. And she at first she freaked out. Then she looked at me, clutched her purse, and ran away. Like, that's my experience, right? So I'm not going to walk up to a woman in a car by herself that doesn't know me. And yeah, it was just, so if I don't know people, even if it's in the Smash community, I'm not going to do it. If somebody can freak out because of what I look like after I saved your life, then I don't care if you're in Smash or not. People might freak out when they see me or react in a way that I can't predict, because for me, it makes no sense. So no, mask always. I don't feel comfortable.
Yeah, no, that's completely understandable with your experiences for sure. I'm going to ask what may be the dumbest question I can come up with, because it's basically one of how do you solve a really big issue thing again. But if you were to go to a Smash tournament elsewhere in another country and you are unfamiliar with everyone there, what could a TO do, or what could an organizer possibly do to maybe alleviate even a little bit the concerns of how people are going to react to you based on something you have no control over? Is there anything possibly?
Yeah. I don't think. I think, like I said earlier, I don't think one TO or one rule set or one particular type of behavior is going to solve the issue. I think it's something that we have to, like, you can only address it by making people less ignorant. I think the reason that racism, or at least that there's more awareness in the community and people don't experience the discrimination that they experienced 10 years ago, is because we're slightly more connected. It's hard to have prejudice and to be stereotyping people that you know. Like you can really say like, oh, these black people are in a certain way, but if half the people you know are black, then you're not going to have that stereotype because you'll see that they're just as diverse as everyone else. So I feel like I think the only way you can actually solve it is by educating people and exposing them to the people that they're prejudiced against, to show them like, hey, you can't predict this one person because of one trait that has nothing to do with this. Because I don't think everybody that stereotypes is necessarily a bad person that is super racist and think they're some kind of superior person. It's just that they're literally ignorant. So I don't think a TO can solve it, but talking about your experiences and calling your friends and family and anybody you know on any kind of prejudice, I think, is the only way you solve this as a community as a whole. To just not shut up. Just if you see it, just call it how you see it. Be like, hey, that's not true. Hey, that's prejudice. Hey, that's this. Hey, just educate people. I don't think a TO can do it.
I think it's very well put.
Collectively.
I think we all need to hear that, even if you already knew it. Fantastic. Trying to see where to go to next. To be just a little bit on what we were already saying. The reason, Zhulong, the reason I did ask about teaching and how you go into that tangent was because I'm assuming that at least in the melee scene, that the average age is still probably below 30-ish. And I was wondering if like all of this, like especially in Europe or in the UK, where you have moments of where, you know, racism is swept under the rug, maybe not on purpose, but it's that sort of, you know, oh, it's not as big a deal here, and other things, how it impacts people growing up, because at 20, you're probably still growing up. I mean, one could argue you never stop, but I do wonder what sort of impact this has on younger people who are of a particular color and are trying to navigate even the Smash community. I just wondered if you had any thoughts on that, and if you've seen anything in the schools and the class settings at all as well.
I'm sorry, I'm just not sure. I wanted to clarify the question. Sorry, have I seen people struggling?
Well, not sorry. Seen was absolutely the wrong word, but I guess what are your thoughts on the impact that this has on young people? I suppose. Maybe it's a bad question. So
yeah. Well, I mean, again, it's hard to speak for different people from different backgrounds, but my experience was that of course, as I said before, I'm mixed. My dad's side of my family is Caribbean, and my mum's side is white British. And nowadays, most people would just, like I said, look at me and maybe think that maybe white, maybe slightly tanned. I don't know. But as a child in primary school, I was the only child in my year group who wasn't completely white, and people made me aware of that. So even though I was like 1/4 less white than them, that was enough to be called a name, and most of the names were completely inaccurate, which was what made it worse. It didn't matter where my family were from. It was the fact that it was just ammunition, right? And recently so that made me very, very aware of myself, but not in a positive way. It was very much if I was completely white, then that would make things so much easier. And growing up, though, obviously Luton being a very multicultural place, that became a non-issue. But I was speaking with a friend recently about I mentioned earlier, like positive Black history, as well as teaching about the oppressive side of things, and that was something he raised to me, and I'd never really thought about it before. I'd been very aware of the fact that we need to include more history from outside of Europe in a curriculum, but I'd never really thought about the imbalance of positive and negative history. And he brought up the idea. This my friend, by the way, a black man, so he was giving me his perspective, and he was saying, the psyche of himself and people that he grew up with who were, who were black or African, Caribbean, was one of I don't really know how to explain it, but he basically the curriculum's focus on negative aspects of the history definitely has a toll on people's psyches and their I'm sorry, I'm not really wording this very well, but whereas the way he put it, a lot of white British children will grow up thinking, Britain is powerful, we are strong, and we've got this ability to kind of do whatever we want, go wherever we want in the world, right? But that is not the same for people of different ethnicities who have been taught constantly, your people are oppressed people. So it's this mentality of being an oppressed people as opposed to a powerful people, which I think is something that people are trying to kind of address and kind of balance more, like I said earlier, with the positive history. But firsthand, it's hard to say because you don't see this kind of mental impact on children unless it's very outward. So all I can do is listen to other people and take into consideration some of my own experiences, however minor they may have been, and just make sure that as many people that I teach get to know that. Sorry, it's a really hard thing to word, but just yeah.
No, I completely I think I know what you're getting at, or at least I can personally say I think I know what you're getting at.
Yeah.
Like to not as big of extent, but as a South Asian, you also like growing up not being proud of your own race, I think is problematic. And I think
Yeah,
it's
that's it,
a
right?
thing. Yeah. So a celebration is always ideal, alongside just hard truths. For every group of people. I know that like my my education on Black history in school, of course, has been just negative. I think what is particularly insidious when I was growing up was that our history textbooks almost always just focused on the UK until it was about slavery. Then they would talk about the US, and then it, even though it made sense. It was something I understood conceptually, but I never really thought about until I was much older that slavery happened here and in other parts of the world. And so I think there's a lot of things that are sort of missing, as you say, Zhulong. And I think the lack of celebration of particular races is a big issue.
Yeah. I think of almost all cultures and all societies outside of Europe. Almost, it's almost like Europe spread out and saved these places, whereas it's not quite true.
Yeah, I've heard saved before.
I think it's the same. It's the same in the Smash community. When the young one come to venues, you said about education, and then we have to restrain ourselves to put the good example to the younger one. We have more and more young people to come to our event tournaments, and when we see the older ones say racist jokes, and words, and do any bad have a bad behavior, we put a bad example for the younger one. I think it's in if we are talking about Smash community, we have to be aware about the younger one and to be welcoming for them, especially when there are person of color, to say it's okay, you can come, can we will you're here for the game. I don't care about your your gender, if you're black, Asian. We're here for the game. So come on, play with me and go on. So you have, but we have everyone. We have to take myself includes, because sometimes we just think about it. We say, hey, we say the N word because there is a friend. The friends know about me. They know it's a real joke between each other. Or when they talk about me, about my nickname Boobs. But we have to be aware of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And awareness is the first step, at least. And I know there's a lot of us can do. I am aware of time. So we've got maybe 4 minutes left, I think, or something like that. There is one more topic I do really want to discuss. And I direct the question to you first, Boobi. So for context, I am not an online person. I have no social media. I only interact with the Smash community in tournaments, and that's it. So whenever I meet someone, that's my impression of them, usually an okay time. What is the difference between an online and offline experience as both a person of race and also a woman? Do you feel like there's been differences? Is it significant? Does it not exist? I'm very curious.
Is this for all of us, or?
Yeah, I mean, it can be for you, of course.
Yeah, but if someone else wants to go first, it's fine. But I do have something to say, I guess.
Feel free, you guys.
I don't see any difference online or offline. I just I just saw some people being more aggressive about when I thought about Muslim people earlier. I saw more aggressive attack against them online, and offline we see anything on Discord, on the local community on Discord. This is really really hard to see that, because everyone is racist on Discord. Just we have to just say that in Discord. This is so hard not to see some racist behavior on Discord, because we are talking to each other. I say on our local community, they say they always do some racist jokes. It's 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 kill me to see that. I try to say stop, guys. It's not cool. But when you're ourselves, a person of color, you grew up on the multicultural community, you think it's okay to you to do racist jokes when you're on your with friends, but it's not okay. And online, this is really really hard to go against it. But offline, you see anything.
Mm.
I don't know if Amza and Zhulong, you agree with that.
Yeah, the way I see it, for me, like I said, offline is fine. People see me and we interact, and it's okay. But online, anonymity is poisonous to people's minds. I feel like people don't have filters online, and because you interact with people you don't really know, they latch onto any attribute you have or any attribute you have, and then just let their pattern-seeking brain just make up your personality for you. So if you're black, then they grab every black stereotype they can find, and that's you, and that's how they interact with you. So it's online is bad. For me, online is entirely different. It's just, maybe it's Twitter just feeding me all the stuff that just triggers me. But I feel like as soon as people aren't face to face, if I don't know them and if they can't see me, they feel like they can say whatever they want. So I feel like the toxicity just quadruples at the very least. It's way worse. The stuff people say, like a simple example that I can think of where the fact that it's online just changed the whole interaction is me and Esam. I know Esam. I don't know if you guys are aware of what happened between me and Esam maybe a week ago. I
Kind
don't
of.
know how long ago it was. But basically what happened is some smasher made a tweet, and I think the tweet was something like, I'm not even gonna name who it is, but someone made a tweet and he said something along the lines of, I'm seeing a trend in how people are making jokes about white people that are actually borderline, like they actually cross the line. Like, jokes are funny, but this is low-key racism. He said something along those lines. And I agree, because I feel like because minorities are being oppressed and stuff is going systematically bad for me and for a lot of other people, that people think like, oh, because I'm oppressed, I can now just say whatever I want and it's all okay. Because look at me, I'm a minority, so I can just say, I don't know, all white people are devils or something crazy like that. I've heard that and people just laugh it off, right? So he made a tweet, something along those lines. And then Esam quoted that saying, how dare you bring up white people's struggles now when people are getting shot by cops and stuff like that. Okay, people are getting shot by cops, but that has nothing to do with what that guy said. So I got into an interaction with him saying like, hey, I agree with you. Systematic racism is something we need to address, and it's the most important thing I feel like we should address right now, because it's really bad, and a lot of people aren't even aware of what's going on, right? But to pretend like a certain different kind of discrimination and prejudice is therefore okay, I don't agree with you. And Esam knows me. I've talked to Esam in person. I've played a set against him, 5 games. He knows what I look like. He knows my history. He knows what I am. He knows me as a person. Like, we're not friends, but we've talked long enough for him to at least have an idea of who I am, right? So instead of just talking to me like a person, like, hey, why do you disagree, right? He started attacking me and screaming at me basically on Twitter, explaining to me what systematic racism is. I'm a black person from the ghetto. What are you talking about? Why are you Esam is a self-proclaimed white Jewish kid that has never experienced racism of any kind. But because it's online, he feels like it's okay for him to just lecture me on systemic racism as if I've never experienced it. So if that can happen to somebody that's on my team, because we're on the same side, I'm pretty sure we're on the same side. Just imagine what it does to somebody that has some kind of prejudice. It just amplifies, all filters are gone. And that's pretty much my experience with online. It's just not okay. It's toxic, I would say. So, yeah.
Yeah, even within the Smash community, it sounds like.
Yeah, that's weird. It's really weird. It's a roller coaster.
Okay. I mean, not that this isn't fascinating, but I think we're slightly over now. So I'm gonna have to end it there. But this was a fantastic opportunity to talk. I'm very grateful that you all joined us today. And thank you to everyone watching. I hope you at least learned something, or you found some comfort in some shared experience. And I'm sure if there's any questions you want to ask the individual people here, they will have their Twitters. I don't, so you can't ask me. But yes, Amsah, Boobi, and Zhulong, thank you all for joining. I really appreciate you taking the time. And this has been a great conference. So everyone stay safe and take care of yourselves.
Yep.
See you later. Thanks a lot.
Bye.